A lot can happen in a week. Some of it good, some of it bad, some of it downright ugly. When faced with intriguing developments in the week's news, we turn to a rotating panel of non-experts to parse the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. On today's panel, Jessica Brown, co-director of Station Theater, Joy Sowing, news columnist for the Houston Chronicle, and David Branham, professor of political science at the University of Houston downtown. Jessica, Joy, David, welcome to Houston Matters.
Hello, Craig.
Thank you.
Panel, as we learned Tuesday from our education reporter, Dominic Anthony Walsh, Houston ISD Superintendent Mike Miles held off until late Monday afternoon before calling off school Tuesday due to the freezing weather. As Dominic told us then, Miles and other districts had pushed for schools to stay open in less than ideal conditions. After calling off classes Tuesday, Miles appeared to regret the move. In a recording posted on social media and verified by Houston Public Media, Miles told an advisory committee that HISD should have stayed open and that he, quote, won't make the same mistake again. Miles went on to say, despite the noise, despite the whining, despite the people who are exaggerating saying, we're going to cost people's lives, I got to ignore that and think about the kids and our core function. For what it's worth, TxDOT reports there were more than 200 ice-related crashes on Houston roads, even with most Houstonians staying home. Miles' regrets also came before classes resumed Wednesday, including at multiple district schools that started another below-freezing day without any heat working in the building. HISD's superintendent thinks twice about calling off classes Tuesday during freezing weather. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Joy Sowing, start us off.
Oh, wow. Well, I have children in HISD schools, and I think what he has said just lacks compassion. To me, very out of touch. That day brought back flashbacks for many of us who went through the winter storm in 2021. And as we saw on the news, you saw all of the people who don't know how to drive on black ice. And so I think it was a dangerous situation. Imagine buses slipping, sliding on the ice. Imagine just driving to school. I am so glad that we stayed home. And even if had HISD decided to be open, I think we would have stayed home anyway, because I don't trust other drivers and all of that. I just think he was, I think it was pretty out of touch of what he said.
All right. Good, bad, or ugly, David Branham.
You make a calculation every time you do something like this. I mean, the kids will be safer at home all the time. I mean, if you put them on the bus, even in good weather, you're taking a chance of something happening. So I understand this is a calculation. You got to trade off the value of having school that day to the weather. But I had the pleasure of talking to Laurel Cavazos, who was Reagan's Secretary of Education back a few years back. Before he was Secretary of Education, he was the president of Texas Tech University. And one day at Texas Tech in Lubbock, it snowed. And everybody come to him and said, President Cavazos, you need to close the campus. He says, why? I lived in Massachusetts. We went through 10 times worse than this. And don't close the campus. We're not going to close the campus. And so he didn't close the campus. He says the biggest mistake he ever made as a president, because people were running into each other. They didn't know how to drive in the car, to drive in the weather, and so forth. It was something they weren't prepared to encounter. So I think that's missing from the calculation here. But I think even the bigger issue is, like Joy said, this lack of compassion. I mean, if he's going to be a superintendent that leads that school district into success, it's not going to be by playing politics with his job. I mean, he's walked in and he's basically said, in so many words, I don't like the teachers here. I don't like what you are doing. And when you do that, you get off on such a wrong foot that you never get back. I mean, I've had bosses that were like that who didn't like me from the day I walked in the door, and it never went well. And I've had bosses, fortunately, who I would run through a brick wall for because they were so good. And it wasn't because they were paying me a lot of money. It's because they were leaders and they had compassion. This superintendent doesn't seem like he cares about the people he leads. Mm-hmm. That is an issue. If you want to be good at something, if you want to lead, you have to care about the people you're leading. If you want to be a good school teacher, you got to care about your students. You can't fake it. Mm-hmm. You got to actually care about them. And I don't get that from Superintendent Miles. I don't see that coming out of his mouth. Mm-hmm. I think that's the bigger issue. If he would have been a person of compassion and then he would have said this, I think it would have went under the rug. And people would have thought, well, he's just making calculation. But because of what he said in the past, people are thinking, this guy really doesn't care. And that's a big problem.
Okay, good, bad, or ugly, Jessica Brown.
I mean, I agree with what everyone else has said so far, but I think that there's another level to it. And the fact that he described it as whining makes everything come across like ego. And ego should never get in the way of safety, especially of kids. You know, I mean, it had to have been like fourth grade or something. And I lived out in the country growing up. I grew up in Huffman. You know, we were driving on a road and one of the bus drivers, not even icy, lost control of the bus. So we ended up sideways in a ditch. And so like that was immediately came to mind for me when we started talking about this. But, you know, and I don't even have kids. So obviously I don't have direct connection with the district, but still, you know, like you said, compassion is necessary. Knowing how Houstonians have trouble on the roads is necessary, and seeing all of the videos of people having trouble with sliding all over the roads. I can't even imagine that in a school bus with the safety of that many kids in one person's hand who probably has not had the training on how to drive on ice in a vehicle of that size.
And it rains all the time here, and people can't drive.
Exactly.
So, you know.
Well, I know how to drive on black ice. You turn off the car and hope you're on a flat spot.
There you go. Yeah.
Imagine that in a bus, though.
Yeah.
That's frightening.
It's been about 20 years since I've driven on black ice.
It's your kids.
Yeah.
You can't take a chance.
Yeah.
Panel, CW39 Chief Meteorologist Adam Kruger has been gaining a lot of notice on the old socials over the last year or so for his efforts to sneak viewers' song lyrics requests into his local forecasts. It's led Kruger to some 1.5 million TikTok followers, about 1 million on Instagram, checking out his sneaking words in the weather videos. As Bored Panda reported this week, Kruger's worked lyrics in from artists as wide-ranging as Rihanna, Ludacris, Metallica, and Eminem. In one popular video, he worked in a lot of well-known lyrics from Eminem's The Real Slim Shady, beginning naturally with "May I Have Your Attention, Please?" and noting of storms forming out west that we're going to have a problem here, and so on. Kruger says his newsroom colleagues never know the song or artist he's working into his weathercast until they hear it. A Houston meteorologist continues to gain attention for working famous song lyrics into his forecasts. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Jessica Brown.
I love this so much. We've actually been following him on TikTok for quite a while. My sister and I will send his TikToks back and forth to each other because they're so good. I mean, he does this so seamlessly that it absolutely blows my mind. And I love the way that he is able to connect social media with what he is doing on the weather and able to engage so many more people that he probably wouldn't have. And not only that, it's a younger demographic of people. So, you know, you have maybe some folks who don't normally watch the news and especially don't watch the weather who are now tuned in because they're trying to see if he can fit in the latest Disturbed lyrics. You know, I mean, he's so good at it. It always amazes me how he very successfully fits all of them in. And so, you know, sometimes they're shoehorned a little bit, but there are so many times that it's really, really fluid and it's really fun to watch.
Joy.
I would say this is great. I like you. I found him on TikTok, and I don't know when.
I can't remember.
I don't know how. I just ended up on his page or seeing his videos, and I was blown away by his talent to be able to incorporate lyrics into a weather forecast. I mean, that takes some super talent.
It really does.
I enjoy watching it. It makes it fun, and like you said, it appeals to a different demographic. He pulls in TikTokers, you know, for the weather forecast, which I think is pretty incredible. And it's nice to have him locally here.
David.
I couldn't research it because I'm not allowed on TikTok. It sounds pretty cool, though. I mean, I saw the groups he's putting in there, you know. Does he have a mosh pit as well? This sounds awesome.
Oh, my gosh, a weather mosh pit.
I mean, and, you know, he can go back in the day, you know, Bill Withers, right? Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone, or
That'd be a good one.
Yeah, actually
Karen
would be.
Carpenter, Rainy Days and Mondays. And, you know, if you have a record temperatures, Like a Virgin, touched for the very first time. But anyway, I think it's good, just like everyone else. So, you know, fame is fleeting. I don't know how long this will last, but enjoy it while you're on the ride.
Yeah.
Finally, panel, a Pizza Hut in Hempstead, about an hour northwest of Houston, has been busy lately. That may be thanks in part to social media attention over its retro design. See, it's one of several Pizza Huts across Texas designed to look like the chain did back in the 1970s and 80s, with dine-in service, stained glass lighting, the checkered tablecloths, the red soda cups, the whole thing. And, of course, a lunchtime pizza, pasta, and salad bar buffet. According to the Houston Chronicle's Sonia Garcia, franchise owner Mike Patronella concluded the location due for a major remodel was a good candidate for the retro look. The attention online and subsequent business would suggest he was right. Pizza Hut mostly abandoned the dine-in side of the business years ago, but there are still a handful of such locations around, and the chain says there could be more of these classic remodels coming later this year. Is this good, bad, or ugly? David.
Oh, it's awesome. It's really cool. This takes me back. I don't think anybody else on the panel is nearly as old as I am, but back in the day, this is what you did if you were a teenager, if you were my age. Going to Pizza Hut and reliving that, I can still feel those plastic cups, right, that you drank your Coke out of, and those red and white checkered tablecloths that were cool. And I'm sorry, then Pizza Hut had the best pizza. There was no Papa John's and Domino's, it was Pizza Hut. That's what you did. I was even lucky enough when I was going to University of Houston here decades ago, we had Pizza Hut here in a restaurant. We had that restaurant. And so I miss it. So I go through Hempstead every now and then. My daughter goes to a College Station at Texas A&M on that side. So when I go to pick her up for the weekend, I think I'm going to stop and have some pizza.
All right. Jessica.
I also think this is fantastic. I, too, loved that really awesome, retro feel. We would go to the one in Atascocita for all of our after show parties, all of our theater parties. So that's where we would always hang out. And, just, again, it's just it's very tactile, the whole, the rough feel of the Coke glasses. And I would love to have those. I would love to have some of those still. And apparently you can get them. There is another woman that I follow on TikTok who collected everything. She has the glasses, she has the tablecloths, she has all of the different things that you could get. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. Should I do that? No. But the fact that, I too go through Hempstead fairly regularly to go visit friends in Austin. And I have relatives up in Brenham. And so I really, really want to check it out because I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot of memories just kind of flashback. It'll be a lot of fun.
Joy.
I think this is great, too. I think anytime something that kind of reminds you of your childhood or something, it draws out all the senses. I don't ever go to Hempstead, but I might take a trip to Hempstead. I also like the fact that when I remember Pizza Hut, they always had a Pac-Man and a centipede machine.
Yes.
And
a Jackbox.
Right. And so I'm like, I hope they have that.
So you were Pac-Man experts, right?
No, I was a centipede expert.
Same. I was
okay.
centipede.
I was Pac-Man.
Okay.
Jessica Brown is co-director of Station Theater. Joy Sewing is a news columnist for the Houston Chronicle. David Branham is a professor of political science at the University of Houston downtown. Jessica, Joy, David, thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig.
Craig.